Hello, I am Gibson Dowinski, and our project is the PLC data processor sponsored by Global Analyzer Systems. And so Global Analyzer Systems, they reached out and they wanted to have a new way of processing their PLC data in the form of a CSV file. So their PLCs were creating these CSV files, and they wanted a way to process them, validate them, and then insert them into their own company database. So this is an internal tool that they wanted made for them. So I will first show you guys a quick overview of what these CSVs actually are, and then I'll get into the actual program. So I will open an example CSV here. Just give you guys a quick overview of what we're kind of working with. And here at the top, we can see we have these column headers that are just attributes. And then they have data corresponding to a certain date and a certain time, as well as the data having statuses sometimes instead of values. So these statuses have to be taken into account when processing the data as well. And overall, processing the data into hourly averages is a pretty involved process. We have to calculate the hourly averages. We have to take into account any statuses, as well as calculating and figuring out what the status should be for the hour itself when we insert the hour average into the database. So this is kind of what we're working with. It's kind of a number crunching, data-driven piece of software, and we have it's split into kind of three pieces. We have the big main core of it, which contains all the server-side business logic for processing the CSV and actually doing the insertion into the database. And then we have two other separate portions. One which is kind of like an automated way to upload these CSVs and insert them. And then the other one is more of a manual way. So I will quickly talk about the automatic way. So ideally, what they want to do at Global Analyzer Systems, will have this PLC data. It will get created, and then they will then send that to a certain spot on whatever system they're running this on. And that spot is this area right here. So just for example, let's say they generated some CSV data and they wanted it to be processed, and they send it over here to the correct location to be processed. And now what we do is we check this location every hour and we process any CSVs we find. So let's do that. So I'm running the program, and as you can see, it's saying we're processing the CSV. So this will happen automatically. This program will always be running, and every hour any CSVs in here will be processed according to the strict validation standard and criteria. It will create the hourly averages, and it will determine the statuses for all these columns and all these entries, and it will insert them into the company database. So as you can see, the two CSVs have been processed successfully and moved to the process folder. Let's say if there was an error that happened, there would be an error folder here as well as logs. Logs here in order to see if there was any issues or anything like that when processing the CSV. So that is kind of the default way to get your CSVs processed and have that data inserted into their company database. But there is another way that we have, and I will just reload this page here. And this is the other way. This is the third and final part of the project, where it is the front end user-based manual CSV insertion. So as you can see here, we have three columns for CSV parameters: 1 minute data descriptors and 1 hour data descriptors. All we will do is upload the CSV. We will set the mapping we want, and then we will save the configuration, insert the 1 minute data, and insert the hourly data separately and manually. And so if we only wanted to insert the 1 minute data, we could do that. But in order to create the hourly averages, we would have to go through the entire process. Now, let's try that out. So here we go. We will upload a CSV. As you can see, the columns have now populated. The left side is from the CSV itself. As I showed you, these are the columns. And then these are values in the database. And what you do is you map the column header to values in the database, and this helps us figure out how to actually insert the data you are providing. And then this is actually what happens here when you set this up and you click Save Current Configuration. It will actually modify the configuration file in the backend to support these values. And now you might be wondering what the site number, file number, and file number are. These are just meant kind of for bookkeeping purposes. They are just part of the requirements that were needed for the project, but they don't really have any main significance to you as a viewer. So these can mostly just be ignored. Just know that we are using these for the insertion as well. So we will save our current configuration. Success. We will now, this mapping is saved on the backend. We can insert our 1 minute data. Inserting the 1 minute data, even though it is a less involved process, there is just a lot more data to actually go through, which is why the 1 minute data usually takes a little longer. And then lastly, we will create the hourly averages. We will run the data through hourly validation, and then we will calculate the hour status and insert the status, and then we will also insert all those averages. So let's do that. That is done. And now we are completely done processing this file, and we can now exit the page. Or if we wanted to process another, we could simply select a new one, upload it, and then restart from the beginning. So those are the three main components of our project. One thing I do want to mention quickly is that the automatic processing, it uses a simple configuration file on the server for the mapping. So this is what the front end edits. And then the backend also follows this. So if you wanted to change a mapping or something, you could also do it manually using this config file. Just thought I'd mention that to clarify. And then, yeah, that's about it. We have a manual and automatic PLC data processor combined into one singular application that can run on just a computer at the company, on the company's network, and anyone at the company will be able to connect to it and either automatically or manually map and process any data coming from PLCs. And then they could even also automate the process of having the PLCs send the CSV to a specific computer at the correct location for automatic processing, and then the entire system from there on out could be automated. I'd like to thank you for watching. Goodbye.